everybody, and welcome back to my channel for this Wednesday morning, afternoon or evening across the world where you may be at. And today I want to talk about the BBC Panorama documentary that Kellie Bright did called Autism, Families on the Edge, which was on BBC One on Monday. And as an autistic woman, I thought it was important to discuss this documentary and basically tell you the details about it, as well as my own autistic opinion. So in the first half of the documentary, we get introduced to Bodhi and Tunde, which is his mum, and he has not been in education for over a year, and he was currently receiving only 19 hours a week private tuition in a library, which is quite sad, to be honest, like that the government still can't figure out local authority education for people with special educational needs or disabilities, also known as SEND. Like, it's quite sad to know that him and his mum are living on a boat and she's having to struggle to fight to get him the tuition that he's owed and the local school that he's owed, and the fact that they're promised the school and then told that potentially he couldn't go there, and that she's still fighting to get him some tuition. And then we were introduced to Etta and her mum, Heather, who's had to give up her teaching career because Etta was refusing to go to school. And again, the local authority was struggling to provide the right support and education care for her and her autism and her ADHD, and she also has demand avoidance. And again, it's so sad to see her mum cry and see the struggles that these parents are going through, and to see how bad their fight is with the education system to get their children help. And then we meet Keris and her mother, and Keris hasn't been to school and also suffers with select mutism and her autism, and her mum has also had to give up her job temporarily to homeschool her, as well as her dad being a local pastor of a church. And again, it's quite sad to see that they have had, luckily, they've had money to pay to take her out to outdoor education activities. But again, that shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be put on the parents to provide this kind of support for their autistic, ADHD, or, they should be getting support from the local authority. The local authority should be doing a lot better with providing the right support, the right framework, the right educational setting, whether it's a mainstream, a private, an independent school, a special school. It should be something that has been provided for them. And again, these three children are clearly being failed by the system, are all clearly being not in education at all. And then they go on to talk about SEND, which stands for Special Educational Needs and Disabilities. It's a broad term. It includes language delay, autism spectrum disorder, ADHD, and other disabilities. And it says that more than 1.9 million in England have a SEND issue between 2023 and 2025. That is a hell of a lot of a big bracket. Like, 1.9 million children have a SEND disability. That is shocking. Shocking. I cannot believe that statistic is so high, considering that we've got a lot better with autism diagnoses and ADHD diagnoses. But again, this clearly says that the government's failing these youngsters and failing young people in general. That is a hell of a lot of a high statistic. And 248, their main need were autism. And then they go on to talk about EHCPs, which is a Educational Healthcare Plan. Educational Healthcare Plans is a legally binding document, which basically means it tells you about the school that they are going to, the extra support that is to be received by the local authority school. A quarter of EHCPs currently are turned down before the full assessment period. Why are they turning down so many EHCPs? I don't understand that. Because if these EHCPs are so needed and have been begged for and begged for and begged for such a long time, then why are the local authority determined and hell-bent on turning these EHCP assessments down? Why don't they just offer the assessment and then decide whether each child needs the EHCP to be provided for them? They shouldn't be just turning them away and saying no, and making that flat out decision. And the local authorities, again, comes down to failing many families. 80% of 80% of all EHCPs a process within 20 weeks. 20 weeks, that's still a long time. That's 4, 8, 12, 16. So it's like 4 months. That's insane. The total number of EHCPs was 354,000 in 2019. It's now 638,000. And there is a deficit of 4.3 billion to 4.9 billion as of March of next year. That's an incredible deficit. How the hell have we let the education system get so bad? Why is there such a big deficit for SEND issues? I don't understand where that deficit's coming from. Surely we should be more on top of that. We should be providing more help and support for these youngsters who are going through the SEND system. And the state places are 92,000, and currently students who are enrolled in these special school places is 100,000. So there's only 92,000 places, and they've got over 100,000 already enrolled in the special educational needs places. And then we go back to seeing Keris, who is discussing her struggles about why she left her mainstream school with her dad. And she said it was, 1 was a loud fire alarm, 2 the social masking of having to fit in and being taught to other students that she didn't like, and getting overwhelmed with the noise and busyness of students being in the building. She just couldn't cope with being in that environment, therefore she had to leave, and therefore a lot of environments don't have the appropriate SEND provision for these students. And the fact that then Kellie Bright, the actress who did this documentary, she went to visit the Education Secretary Georgia Gould, who was the Education Minister, and she told her that the authority has £1 billion of money for EHCPs, but what does this look like in practice? And she said that she wished there was more schools that would have more teachers trained in SEND and disabilities, which is what I've been saying for years. There is not enough teachers trained in SEND, autism, ADHD, OCD, speech delay, language delay, global delay. There isn't teachers are not given enough training, not given enough support to provide support and specialist training to these students. These students need specialised teaching, one-on-one, one-to-one support, because a lot of the disabilities are severe. A lot of these students should not be in mainstream school. Again, that's down to the lack of special school places. It's down to a lack of special school teachers. It's down to a lack of teachers in mainstream who are being taught in disabilities at all. I believe, from what I was told previously, that teachers who start their jobs only get 1 hour of autism training. 1 hour, that is no way near enough. No way near enough. That is ridiculously stupid. There needs to be at least once a year or more of autism and SEND training. That should be provided by people with lived experience, or parents with lived experience. We should be able to go into these schools and be like, this is how it is, this is how it's going to work, this is not how it's going to work. And again, these students are being failed because they're not being given the chance to grow and develop and be supported. And again, the education system just doesn't know what to do with them. They either tell the students they're not allowed to be in that school, or they decide that they have to be homeschooled, or, it shows that the education system has no clue what to do with these poor children, young people, adults who are trying to access the education system. And it makes me so sad knowing that these parents are still fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting. Like, Kellie Bright is still fighting for her son with autism and SEND disabilities. It shouldn't be happening. These parents should have better support. These parents should be having the government help them through every turn, every twist, every situation they have to face, because having a SEND child or SEND young person or SEND adult is going to be tricky for them. They're having to constantly fight the system that is broken. The system clearly is not working. It's clearly not fit for purpose when it comes to disability, and we need people who are trained in disability, and unfortunately that is not happening. Clearly we're not having the teachers to be providing training for. We're not having the professionals in government being trained in autism. Clearly that's not working either. Not just autism, but OCD, ADHD, global delay, speech delay, epilepsy, mental health issues. This is clearly a barrier that needs to be fixed and adjusted, and I'm glad that Kellie Bright has been discussing this, because she says that she's been fighting for over 2 years. That is incredibly sad knowing that she's had to have 2 years of constant backward and forward, backward and forward, backward and forward, backward and forward with her local authority to get help for her son. It's just sad. And as a late diagnosed autistic woman myself, my parents tried fighting for years for me to get, specialist help and provision, and because I wasn't diagnosed or didn't have no label, no one wanted to know. It's awful. The parents suffer like hell to try and get their people help, their children help, the young people help, their adults to get help, because they don't know where else to turn, they don't know what else to do. And it is sad, because it shouldn't be that way. It really shouldn't be that way. And the government, I feel, is failing. I feel that the training needs to be picked up as an issue. I feel that people like Kellie should be getting better support. The parents of these 3 young people I've mentioned should be getting better support. The problem is that there is no disability support. There is no department as such that looks after disabilities or mental health. There isn't a department that takes responsibility in government, and unfortunately we continue to fall through the cracks. And I think the more and more we continue to fall through the cracks, the worse it's going to get. And I am scared for the future of SEND and disabilities and mental health, because I don't know where it's going to go. I think there needs to be a lot of improvements on both sides. I think there needs to be improvement in government. There needs to be a massive improvement in the education system. But let me know your thoughts and feelings down below in the comments section, and I will see you next time. Bye.